ramach drugiego Międzynarodowej Konferencji Indeks Funkcji Seksualnych Kobiety jednym z wykładowców i zarazem gości konferencji była pani profesor Beverly Whipple, która jest w tej chwili naszym gościem i chcieliśmy przez kilkadziesiąt minut poruszyć kilka kwestii, w których pani profesor Whipple jest kompetentna i na pewno nas poinformuje o najnowszych doniesieniach w tych obszarach. Uczestniczy również z nami w rozmowie pan dr Krzysztof Nowosielski, który jest również członkiem Komitetu Naukowego odbywającej się właśnie w tej chwili konferencji w Warszawie. Pierwsze pytanie, które stawiam obydwu Państwu i pani profesor Whipple, czy edukacja seksualna powinna, czy też jest częścią programów zdrowia publicznego? So, welcome to Warsaw, welcome to our conference. Beverly, please try to answer us several questions which we prepare for today's meeting with you. The first one is a sexual education a part of public health programs?
I think sexual education should be a part of all public health programs. In fact, the United Nations a number of years ago published the Declaration of Human Rights that all countries signed on to. And based on that declaration, the World Association for Sexual Health then came up with the Declaration of Sexual Rights, which has been approved by all of the countries who are members of the World Association for Sexual Health. And we have recommendations based on the UN Declaration in this Declaration of Sexual Health to help countries to incorporate sexual health as part of their public health messages.
Could you please tell us how is organized sexual medicine clinics and sexual education in the United States?
Sexual medicine clinics are organized by the medical personnel who have them. Sexuality medical education is not organized in the United States. There's no formal education. Some medical schools do have a few hours of lecture, but this is really a big problem in the United States, and it seems to be a problem all over the world, that we have to include more information about sexual health in the education of our medical professionals.
Christopher?
Yes, well, you were a sexual educator for many years. Do you have any advices for us as sexual educators? What would you advise us in sexual education field?
Well, first of all, I think it's really important for people who are doing sexual education to know their own values, know what they feel is important, and not try to impose their values onto someone else, but to accept the people who you're speaking to for having their own values, and then to give good factual information. I know in my country, in the United States, for quite a while, we weren't allowed to give any information. It was called abstinence only until marriage, which I have no problem with. But if you took money from the federal government to do a sexuality education under that program, you couldn't talk about methods of birth control. You could not talk about sexually transmitted infections, including HIV/AIDS, and you really couldn't give any basic information except abstinence only until marriage. So the students who had that education really didn't have any information, and they didn't know how to talk about sexual health to their parents, with their partners. It was very difficult.
What do you think? When shall we start sexual education? From primary school, from secondary school, or later?
I think sexuality education should start from birth on.
From birth on?
Yes, as we're teaching our children, this is your nose, this is your mouth, this is your penis, this is your vagina. We need to be able to give good, accurate information from birth on, and then we'll find that the children are more comfortable with themselves, with their bodies, and more comfortable asking questions of their parents, of their teachers, and more comfortable talking about sexual health with their peers.
How should we prepare sexual educators? Who could teach sexual education?
I think that's a very good question. Who can teach it? It's people who are comfortable and who have a good background themselves in sexual health. And they need to be able to take courses. In the United States, we certify people as sexuality educators. They have to have so many hours of education. They have to take something called a sexual attitude reassessment program, where they're exposed to different values, and then they break up in small, they usually via film, then they break up in small groups to discuss this and see that everyone has different values, and we have to learn to respect people. So we do certify sexuality educators. We also certify sexuality counselors and sex therapists. And all of these people need a certain number of hours of education and practice and supervision by a certified person who's a supervisor.
Dear Professor Whipple, Professor Oszczędzki, he published recently some papers about the presence of the G-spot. What is your comments about it?
Well, I'm aware of one paper that he published, and he, in that paper, he did an autopsy on a woman who was, I think, 83 or 84 years old, had no history of her sexual responses, and he did not do any studies of the tissue that was removed. And so my colleagues, Dr. Emanuele Giannini, who's a top OBGYN in Italy, and my research colleague, Dr. Barrett Komisarek, we're both neurophysiologists. The three of us wrote a rebuttal to his paper, which was published in the same journal, questioning some of his findings. My main concern was, he said he found the G-spot, which is not in the anterior vaginal wall, which is where he said he found it. The area of the G-spot is much, much more complex than that. In fact, Dr. Giannini calls the area of the G-spot the clitoris urethral vaginal complex. So we know that there are many, many tissues in that area, not just one tissue. So I think that he needed to not call that the G-spot. He found some tissue in the anterior vaginal wall, but not the G-spot.
Okay, thank you.
Do you think that there are estrogen receptor in the vagina or testosterone receptor in the vagina near the G-spots, and what kind of therapy could influence the G-spot if there are receptors?
I don't know if they're receptors because the area is so complex. There's so many tissues in that area. You have the urethra, of course. You have what used to be called the paraurethral gland, so the female prostate gland. You have the core of the clitoris, the branches of the clitoris, and many other tissues in that area. So I don't know about them being receptors for estrogen or testosterone. So I really can't answer that question.
So do you think that if we administer testosterone vaginally, do we influence the orgasm, or do we influence how the woman feel during sexual intercourse?
I don't know. I don't know that testosterone has been ever administered vaginally, and I don't know if there would be an effect or not. But not knowing if there are receptors in the area of the G-spot, I can't really speak to that.
Now we go into the gynecology aesthetic aspects. What is your opinion about this aesthetic gynecology? This is here in Poland and in Europe is a very new part of the aesthetic medicine.
And what do you mean exactly by that? Can you be more specific?
The aesthetic gynecology is a part of the aesthetic medicine who made some correction on the vagina or other parts of...
It's like labioplasty or injection of hyaluronic acid in, let's say, G-spot region or G region.
Area.
Area.
The area, I have a lot of problems with what is called the G-shot.
G-shot.
In which they're injecting into the area of the G-spot. We don't know if they are or not because there have been no double-blind, placebo-controlled studies of the effectiveness of this injection. But women go in and have this injection every 3 months. very expensive, at least in the United States. It's a couple $1,000s. And we have no idea in terms of what it is doing. Would just an injection of sterile water do the same thing? We don't know because there's been no studies tested on this or published. And now there's a procedure called the O-shot. The O-shot. But this G-shot that I've heard about and try to find out about, they have franchised this all over the United States and in many countries in the world. So this is a procedure. And there was a film company from France and Canada who did a documentary on some of my research. And they had the man who developed this G-shot in the film. And I said, why did you have him in there? There's no studies on that. And they said, everybody will know he's in it just to make the money. So that was their rationale for putting it in, and I did not have the power to veto that. But
So are you aware of any females that had a G-shot? Do you know any of?
I know no one who has had it. Because people know I speak out against it, and no one has come to me and said, I had that, it was wonderful. I have had no positive
No patient with that kind of
feedback
shots.
from that. Do they do that here in Poland?
Sometimes, but it's a new technique, so we don't have any experience. But I agree with you that there's no point in doing that if we don't have any double-blind studies on that.
Right.
We need some proofs. We need evidence-based medicine, not just a business, because I think that's kind of business, not medicine.
Yeah, I agree. But we agree on a lot of things. So.
Yeah.
You are one of the author of the current concept of sexual response in women. Which models in European describe the best female sexual response?
Well, first of all, I don't think that there is a female sexual response per se. I think there are many different responses, and each woman is different, each woman is unique, and each woman responds differently from one time to another. So even in the same woman, she has different responses. So I don't think we can put people into a pattern of only one way to experience sensual and sexual pleasure.
So we are going into the personalized medicine.
Absolutely. I think that each woman is unique, and we have to honor that. My whole research program has been based on validating the pleasurable sensual and sexual experiences reported by women. I have done studies on, as you know, rediscovering and naming the G-spot and the female ejaculation. I've conducted studies on women who experience orgasm from just thinking, imagery orgasm, no one touching her body, including the woman herself. I've documented that women who have complete spinal cord injury do experience orgasm. These are women who have been told, no, you can't, you have no movement, no sensation, no feeling, you can't experience an orgasm. And we measured that in my lab, that they do indeed experience orgasm. And then we did some nerve cuts in animals to identify what nerve pathway goes from the genitals to the brain, bypassing the spinal cord. And then we did functional MRIs of the brain in women with complete spinal cord injury, with self-stimulation, and they did experience orgasm. And it looked the same as the orgasm experienced by women who don't have spinal cord injury.
And
That was a long answer. I'm sorry.
Okay, no.
One more thing, actually. So if we say that every woman is different, so she may have different kind of cycles, and the other thing is that we should teach everybody that they are different. So there's no unique model of sexual response. Some women may think that she has orgasmic dysfunction, where in fact she's totally healthy. She
Right.
may feel orgasm in a different way.
That's right. And I think it's really important that we give women permission. We have to give them permission that whatever it is they experience, as long as it feels good to them, is pleasurable to them, and is not exploitive of someone else, that's great.
Yeah, that's why
And-
they include distress in the
Absolutely.
diagnosis of sexual dysfunction.
Yeah, I was part of that.
Yeah, you
Part of
did,
that,
you did translate, actually. And we had the last question.
Yeah, we can find out the question about the brain. Do you agree, Professor Beverly, if the brain, the center of the sexuality and as a central sexual organ?
I believe that orgasm occurs in the brain. I really do. I believe that orgasm occurs in the brain. So the brain is very important. We have measured orgasm. We have measured the brain with orgasm from very different types of stimulation, including from just thinking about different parts of the body when they have orgasm. And I do believe that the brain is extremely important, and that's why we're doing a lot of our studies now with functional MRIs of the brain to see what happens in women, and now we're starting to do studies in men as well.
I know, and I hope that this is not your last visit to Poland, to our conferences. Do you have maybe for us some message for the future about our activity?
Well, take-home messages. First of all, thank you for inviting me here to Poland again, and keep encouraging your colleagues to be conducting research, to be talking about sexuality to their patients, and to include sexual health as an important part of their health assessment, and to be able to give information to their patients and to their students and clients about sexual health. I think it's very important.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.